So at the time, this was, this was 2010. So you got to remember the internet was a much different place even 10 years ago where like he just had a website with a P.O. box on it, where like now I don't know if anybody would really do that because, with Instagram and Twitter, I think that's a dangerous thing to do because he definitely doesn't have that anymore. And I don't blame him, but at the time it was like a website that probably set up in like 2006 or something. It was just there. So I started, and this is a true story, I started mailing my resume, quote unquote, whatever that means, just records I worked on, to this P.O. box. Basically, every few months, I just started, every time I did a record I thought was cool, I would put a letter in the mail with that resume and a demo reel, and I would send it. And then I would send it again. And then I would send it again. And I would send it again. And out of just sheer coincidence, I was working at a voiceover studio at the time, doing car commercials as well, and using the back studio to do pre-production for the bands that I was recording for free. That's really why I was doing that. I was doing car commercial fill-in work so that I could use the studio. The studio was dope. They had in the back, but my bands didn't have the budget for it. So I was like, hey, if I do your car commercials, can you let me use that studio? And they're like, yeah, sure. But this is a really weird story. One of the VO guys that was doing the car commercials, his son was a bassist in a band that was recording with John Feldman in Los Angeles. Okay. I get a call from that VO guy and saying, my son said that there's a resume from somebody on John's coffee table from a guy in Charlotte, North Carolina. And John tasked him with finding him an assistant for this record. Because they, it's their thing or whatever like that. And he asked if I know this person because it's a small world. And lo and behold, he does. It's me. It's the guy that records his car commercials, I was like, holy shit, that's crazy. And he laughed and said, yeah, he said there's like 6 of them on there. And it was coffee table because I just mailed so many of them to John over the years that there was like 6 of them probably there over the year. So basically they gave me an email and John was like, yeah, it was John's assistant at the time. It wasn't John that was emailing me. Was like, hey, do you want to come out to LA next month? Like, you need a car, but other than that, like you got the gig if you want to come out and be an assistant for this record. So I did. I flew out there. I rented a car and assisted John for, I don't even remember how long it was, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Enough for me to be like, fuck yeah, I want to do this here in Los Angeles. Do you know what I'm saying? So I went back.
You got a taste for the big leagues.
I got a taste for the big leagues, man. I was at John Feldman's studio, and he was one of the dudes that like helped shaped my thought of what rock music was, modern rock at the time. And I was really... given I was getting food and editing guitars for him, but nonetheless, it was like, holy shit, this is it though. Like, this is dope. You know what I mean? Like, I want to do this. So I went back to North Carolina with a new goal in mind, which was, I'm going to move to Los Angeles and make records. That's it. That's the goal now. I'm a very goal-oriented person, so I have those things that I like to set for myself. This was in 2011. I didn't move here I've been here for 5 years, so I didn't move here until 4 years later, but I had gotten some work here in the interim, so I had flown to LA a couple times between that, and basically basically continued my production career and making records out east. Maybe once a year I came to LA and I made some connections here through John that I would come here and do work at, and basically just saved money for like 3 or 4 years to be like, okay, this is the nest egg I want to go out to LA and basically blow on a studio apartment and making records in Los Angeles. So that's exactly what I did. I came out here. I didn't know really anybody besides maybe the few contacts I had through John, and just started over 5 years ago.
Wow. How was that process?
It was terrifying. I mean, at that point, I was, 29 years old, so I wasn't like young anymore, Not, I mean, I don't think that's old either, but like I wasn't, when I started the thought of it, I was 24, 25 years old, you know what I mean? So like I didn't move there right away. I didn't move here right away. I really took the time to save money and do it as right as I could. So I was leaving all of my I mean, I'm from Long Island, originally, so when I say
represent.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from Brooklyn, but
there
Brooklyn's technically Long Island.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same, whatever. So literally, when I say everyone I knew was on the East Coast, like everybody was on the East Coast. My family, my extended family, my friends. I was just starting over, I was lucky that my twin brother was coming out here with me. So I had him and his wife, or, my sister-in-law coming out here with me. So I had a rooting in that. Joey, my twin brother, by the way, is he's also a producer, but on like pop and hip hop stuff. So he's more of like a, like a Logic,
Cool.
like beat guy, and he does really well doing that genre. But so that's why he was coming out here
cool.
to do the same thing, but in a different genre, So it was like a good move for both of us. And I
feel like this has to be like a scientific study of like twin brothers that like go and do the same career.
I'm sure there has to be something to that, right? I mean, they just have there,
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. So we, came out here and it was really scary. I remember the first year was probably, I would say, knock on wood, probably the hardest year of my life. At least I hope it ends up being the hardest year of my life. You know
Amen.
what I mean? Yeah, Lord willing, that will have been the hardest year of my life that year, 2015, not another year coming up, It was hard. The money that I saved went really fast, as you always hear. I didn't have a studio to record records at, so I was making connections, trying to find places to go and make records at. It all worked out though, and it's a long story as to how it worked out, but it did in fact work out. At least currently it worked out. I mean, you never know what tomorrow brings. I try and it worked out. That doesn't mean it's going to continue to work out, but it's working now. It did work out.
Amen. Was there a specific record that like solidified that process for you?
You mean it working out or me moving to Los Angeles?
No, it working out for you in Los Angeles.
Yeah. I worked with Taking Back Sunday on their Tidal Wave record and have worked with them with pretty much everything they've done since then in different capacities. And that record did really well. It went number 2 on the Billboard rock charts, and it did great. So that was... I mean, if not for that, I actually don't know if it would have worked out, if I'm being honest. That was kind of it.
That was your lucky break.
That was it. That was the break, I mean, I worked on that record with them for a long time, and it was one of the best experiences I've ever had in my whole life, and it actually paid off, I probably am forever in debt to that band because I have been able to parlay that into... it's one of those things where everyone always says, man, if I just had a shot, I know I have it in me. And that's a very dangerous phrase because when you get that shot, you actually don't know if you do have it in you. Like when you're presented with that, you're like, oh, God damn it. Like this now I actually, do I have it in me?
But you have to say yes. You have to say yes.
Of course. Yeah. You're only a fool not to say yes. And that was one of those things where it's just like, oh, okay, cool. Like I did do that, So yeah, if not for that, I mean, I don't know what it would have played out. I mean, that's another timeline, I guess. That would have played out. I don't know. I don't know. But
right.
Yeah, that was that. So
I need to ask you, like, how did you make that connection? Like, you're in LA, you're struggling, you're looking for work, you're trying to like make it all work out. Money, like it's an expensive city. How did you meet, like, Taking Back Sunday? How did you get in touch with that band? Because they're like a big band. They've been around a long time. Like I told you before we started recording, even I saw them back in 2005 opening for Weezer.
And may I say, they're also, and I've told them this before, they're one of my favorite bands. I've probably I saw them live. I believe I have a T-shirt that they signed at Warped Tour from back in the day. Like I was like I'm a legitimate fan of their band. I think they're one of the best rock bands of our generation. I love them. I tell people this story because I think it's very important. Because this goes back to the beginning of the conversation when we worked with that producer when I was 15 and he didn't give a shit about our project and he made it a bad experience. If you're going to sign on to a project, no matter how big or small, it has to matter to you. And this is a great example of why. I did a record for a small local band in Charlotte named The Carbonari. They are no longer together. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if the record we did ever got put out. And it was a group of a couple guys and a girl, and I was producing 3 songs for them. And I mean, pretty much when I'm working on a record, I oftentimes sleep at the studio. I'm all in, and that goes pretty much now. Like I do 6 days a week, 12-hour days, without a doubt, when I'm working on an album.
Wow.
That's the schedule we keep. That schedule I keep. The band doesn't always have to be here, and as a matter of fact, they really can't be the whole time because. But that is the schedule when I'm working on it. As a matter of fact, I started an LP on the 14th, 15th next week. That will be my schedule for the next month after that. It'll be 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. Take Sundays off. That's
props to you, my man.
Cheers. That's thank you. And I was doing that. This was, again, I was doing that in 2014 as well. That hasn't changed. This was 2014. I was doing this project. This was at Back East in Charlotte. Small local band, no fan base. That played maybe 8 shows total, whatever. Well, it turns out the guitarist of that band and one of the vocalists, his brother-in-law was Adam Lazzara from Taking Back Sunday. Very small world, of course. I didn't know that. No, I mean, even if I did, it wouldn't have mattered. If I'm being honest, I'm just saying, like, I didn't know that going to the project. That's not why I was doing the hours I was doing on it or something. Like, I didn't. That was a completely unbeknownst factoid. Adam at the time, Adam was from the North Carolina area, High Point, I believe, actually, and I think he had just recently moved back to the Charlotte area with his family to be closer to his parents or something at the time, and. I guess the lead singer, who's of the Carbonari, showed Adam from Taking Back Sunday these demos, or they weren't demos. I'm sorry, they were proper recordings. I don't know if they were ever really mixed, if I'm being honest, because I don't think the record of it got finished. But they were the recordings that we had done at that studio. Maybe a month or two later, I was at a bar in Charlotte, and Adam, the lead singer, was at the same bar. And he came up to me, or that's a little blurry, probably because we were at a bar, so I was drinking alcohol. I couldn't tell exactly how we actually met that night. I think it was like a handshake sort of thing. But I remember him saying, "Hey, you did that Carbonari stuff. That stuff sounds really, really great." And I was like, "Wow, thanks." I mean, that's like fucking huge compliment from from anybody. But specifically from someone who I respect their work, right? It always, whenever you respect someone's work and they also like your work, it's like, oh, wow, that even means more,
Yeah.
So
sure.
I'm kind of hesitant to say the next part because I know this is a podcast, so it's very public good. But I will say it because I think it's important for the story. That band wasn't very good, if I'm being honest. Now, let me just say the lead singer of that band from the Carbonari has gone on to play in a really, really great band. He's actually doing really well. So it's no slight on him. It just wasn't his project. It wasn't a very good band. But I think I made that band sound really good. And I think maybe Adam heard that. Was like, hey, this band has only played a few shows. They're not very tight. They're not very good yet. But this guy made them sound like a band that could go out there and play theaters or whatever. You know what I mean? And I think there was some... I mean, I'm just saying this from hypotheses, of course, But I know what I did. But I did that. But I know what I did on that recording, so I like to think it probably was that, So we met. So that was 2014, and then basically, I think that maybe just stuck in his head or something because a year later, before I moved to Los Angeles, they were doing pre-production demos, and they thought about me. They were like, "Oh, we're doing them in town." Because John Nolan's wife is pregnant, so we can't go anywhere. We have to stay in Charlotte to do these demos because that's where Adam and John lived. So we need somebody to come in that we trust that's in town to do it. And they called me to do it. I literally, it was because of those 3 songs that I had done a year prior. Like that's why I had met them, So yeah.
Sometimes it pays to be the local guy. You know what I mean? Like you never know.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. You never, you just don't know. If it's one thing about the industry, you don't know who you're working with at any given time and where they're going to land. There's this great story that one of my friends, Tom, who produced Every Rose Has a Thorn and all these crazy, he was in that Motley Crue. My buddy Tom Werman did those records, and he was telling me about when he was doing I want to say one of I don't know the name of the band because I'm not in that genre, but anyway, Bret Michaels, whatever. Is it Poison? Did he play? Was it Poison that he did? Bret Michaels? I don't know. Anyway, he was talking about how he was in the studio with them, and one day, I believe Bret brought his new girlfriend to the studio, and they met or whatever, and she was an actress and she just moved to L.A. Lo and behold, it ended up being Renee Zellweger. You know what I mean? It's what the fuck? You know what I mean? You just don't know who you're around and where these things are going to go. And that's the beautiful part about the music industry and about any creative industry is it's really big until you realize how small it actually is, And then you're like, oh shit, everything I do really does make a difference. And I have to care about every little detail about this because that one detail is the thing that could make or break the next the next gig or the next record I do. And I kind of enjoy that amount of detail and pressure.